Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I'm the CEO of Aegis Business Technologies here in Tallahassee, Florida. And today we're joined by Allison Aubuchon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Before we get started, I normally start with some cybersecurity tips, but today I would like to give a personal shout out to a couple of businesses in Tallahassee, Florida. Miller's Tree Service and Lawson Electrical. A tree fell on my house on Saturday. Yay, campers, isn't that fun? Well, both of those entities helped me, and the tree is now gone, and the electrical damage is repaired. Clay Culpepper was actually on site an hour after the tree fell. So Rowdy, Clay, I appreciate you, gentlemen. Welcome, Allison. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Blake. Good morning. I'm doing well.
Awesome.
Just came back from a little vacation with my family, so I'm feeling recharged.
Yes, the recharge doesn't last long enough. That's what I've noticed. It lasts about 24 hours, and then it's back to it. All right, well, let's get started. You went to the University of Florida, probably one of the greatest learning institutions in the world.
It is, yes.
Let's start with your career. What did you study at the University of Florida, and how did that lead you to what you're doing today?
So I studied public relations and have stayed in public relations since school. It has served me well. It is a science, and it's something that I feel like I'll be able to apply to anything I do in life. It allows me to be creative. It allows me to think critically and strategically, and went for that track after learning that yacht interior design was not going to be best suited for me. It was going to require a lot of more architecture and math, and after learning what public relations was all about, I thought, hey, that sounds great. Be a florist or be in public relations according to the survey I took as a freshman. But public relations has been really fun.
Yes, always avoid math. That is a good guide for any youngsters out there. I had a learning disability in math, so I was really trying hard to avoid it. I think I went from political science to journalism to business to recreation, parks, and tourism.
I did a little of that as well. That was my cognate. Recreation, parks, and tourism. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoyed the college very much. There was a lot of group projects and a lot of exposure to things I probably wouldn't have seen if I would have stuck with one of the others. But again, math was a barrier to success there.
Same.
So what was your first job? What did you do right out of school?
So my first job was with Kid Group here in Tallahassee.
Nice.
We'll talk a little bit about FSU, but I actually went to FSU as well to get my master's in communications, media and communication studies, and applied with Kelly Robertson and Tom Drzapolski, who were working at Kid Group at the time. So I remember that interview fondly. You know, Kelly really tested me, and thankfully I got the job. But I was there for about 3.5 years, and that was like just getting like the equivalent of, to me, a PhD in public relations, because you're having to work with so many diverse industries and clients, from high-speed cameras to putting together crash demonstrations for Click It or Ticket, and we had so much fun. And from there, I ended up going in-house at Capital City Bank here in Tallahassee for about a year, and that was a lot of event planning and community relations. From there, worked in the Florida Senate at the Florida Senate Majority Office, and got my ears wet in terms of politics and just understanding the legislative process and how the sausage is made, and really got exposed to the advocacy world. From there, got to work for Governor Jeb Bush's organization, the Foundation for Excellence in Education, headquartered here in Tallahassee, and was exposed to the world of education policy, advocacy space for about 4 years. And at that point, growing our family, Josh and I had our first child, and was really desiring more flexibility in my life. And so decided that, the perfect situation is not going to come to me. I have to make it for myself, and went out on my own and started my own business. So I've been doing that for about 7 years as a consultant in public relations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What a journey. A ton of questions just popped in my head.
Okay.
Capital City Bank, I just talked to at length yesterday. I'm joining their advisory council in the near future.
That's awesome.
That'll be fun.
Congratulations.
And knowing you work with the Senate now, your name is mentioned in the political process all the time, whether it's sunburn in the morning or work with your company. So congratulations on having such a well-known brand.
Thank
and
you.
doing what you want with your career. That is what it's all about.
I think having control over my schedule has been hugely helpful in this season in life. Now having 2 kids and being able to be there for them, being in control of my time. I've always worked hard. And it's like so many people like yourself. And been throughout my life. I've been known to have that laptop on the couch, just following up on emails, and I'm not beholden to anyone if I have to go and be there for a sick kid or be there for a school event. And I think a lot of companies have become more flexible and supportive to families and parents. And I think that's so wonderful. But for me, I needed to kind of create that for myself and have control of that, especially at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what it's all about. And when I talk to our staff, I'm always like, once you get out of an 8 to 5 mindset and you're willing to put in an hour on a Saturday or a Sunday night or a Monday afternoon, whatever it is, then you can have that 10 to 12 to go to church or to kids' sporting events or play or whatever it is. And whether you own your own business or you're a manager or whatever it is. And a lot of our team has had great success, having that aha moment. Like, because, if you have to punch in and punch out and work's a chore, that is not what it's all about. So great for you. Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
So your career has evolved. We collaborated on one of my Florida politics columns earlier in the year on an entity called WellConnector, and you're a co-founder of that entity, are you not?
Co-founder, yes, along with Eddie Gonzalez-Lumiere, Franz DeWitt, and Jeff Couch, and my husband, Josh.
That is awesome, and what a dream team there. I'm very familiar with Eddie. He just joined our board at Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yay, Eddie is awesome.
Yay, Eddie. Thank you for your support. So first, tell us more about your communications firm, and then let's talk about WellConnector, and then we'll have to talk about UF some more.
Okay, so I specialize in the advocacy space and coalition building. So my wheelhouse and skill set is really more messaging, writing, media relations. I do some graphic design, strategic planning, frequently around policy and advocacy issues. So being in Tallahassee is wonderful for me, just the proximity to the Capitol and the associations and groups here who are speaking up for issues they believe in. Often they don't have somebody in-house who has maybe the time or the capacity to work on these types of issues. And so I work with groups like the American Heart Association, a couple of wonderful insurance groups, the Florida Surplus Lines Association, Personal Insurance Federation of Florida, and now in the past couple of years, the American Association of Orthodontists, which has been really fun. So again, groups that have issues that they're advocating for that support their industries and protecting their industries or the safety of patients, for instance, and helping to be here on the ground in Tallahassee and even in other states. My work has expanded into the Southeast in equipping advocates with the tools they need to speak up on these issues and informing the media as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's an average day like in your world? I mentioned the 8 to 5 range. What's an average day, say, during legislative session like for you?
Session is crazy. I mean, session, I'll be honest, sometimes I'm still wearing my PJs into the afternoon because as soon as the kids get out the door, Josh will take them in and head into the office and I'm just immediately at my desk. And so I don't think there's a, perfectly managed work from home scenario. Sometimes when you're like me, where my perfect image was, starting the crock pot early in the morning and like being all ready for my Zooms and looking great. And that is just not the glamorous work from home life often, especially during session. But I am just immediately scanning the news, looking at my to-do list. I make a list of the day of just what is my work schedule and life priorities. I have kind of 3 columns and I just go from there. And I have an amazing director of health and wellness. His name is Ranger, and he is my 4-legged buddy who makes sure I get up and walk around and get some sunshine. I'm able to check on the garden if I need to, but I'm not always at home. I'm often coming into the Capitol to meet with the client or meet at a coffee shop, taking Zoom calls, but every day is different. Every day is nutso.
Do you make an actual list? Like on paper?
I do. So I have a project management platform I love called Asana. A lot of people use Asana. It's the electronic kind of moving things from place to place, adding notes. It interfaces with Google. It's really, really helpful. But I still love the paper planner. I work from that as well, and I'm a big list maker, so I use a little of both.
Yeah, I was working from home yesterday while dealing with tree fund, and I found myself making the most bizarre list that had no beginning and no end. It was just names and tasks and bizarre memos that only I could understand. When I saw it on my desk today, I'm like, someone's going to think. It was like, remember Beautiful Mind, that movie where he's writing all the gibberish on the walls and pictures and math equations, and it kind of looked like that, just total chaos. But I love a good list, and I never work from home because our office has so many logistics associated with it. When it came time for pandemic world, somebody had to stay behind. I was like, well, I guess that's me. Leadership has its privileges and responsibilities, and I asked for volunteers to join me, and my wife's our procurement director. She joined me, and a couple of our consultants, Mike and Keith, joined me, and everybody else was like, okay, we've got a core here. We can handle logistics. Everybody else can go home, and we got it done. And what a weird time to be alive. We were talking about that in our high-level pre-production meeting. Share with us something special during the pandemic, if you would like to at this time.
Sure. Well, one of the moments in my career which was most exciting and that I'm most proud of is that I got to hire my first employee. And it was very kind of unexpected and unplanned. But at that time, my account assistant at the time, Chloe Barr, was, her plans after graduation were kind of falling through with the pandemic and being able to move to a big city. And I was going after an RFP that if I had gotten it, I didn't know that I had the capacity to do it on my own, but it would allow me to hire someone. And the stars kind of aligned where I won the proposal. I called Chloe and I said, would you like to stay in Tallahassee and work for me full time? And she said yes. And it was something that was kind of a opposite of what the rest of the world was doing at that time. People were starting to work more from home, and we took the opposite approach and just kind of created this safe bubble. The two of us got office space, and for about a year and a half, I got to work with Chloe and help her grow her career, and she was fantastic. One of the most proud moments of my professional career, being able to hire my first employee. So she has now moved to DC. Once things started opening back up, she began traveling and is now working at a big firm there. And I'm so proud of her, and it was such a special time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There were some bright moments of 2020 and 2021. The dark moments get overshadowed. Or they overshadow the bright moments. Well, you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Ranger. How old is Ranger?
Ranger is just over a year, and he was adopted from the Tallahassee Humane Society. Okay. Josh and I lost our two elderly pups. They passed within a couple months of each other a couple years ago. And so after we were kind of ready to open our hearts to a new dog, I feel like Ranger's been such a blessing for me and my health and my movement and just happiness. And he's always with me, kind of perched in the office. We actually, last week in North Carolina, we took him to Ranger Falls, which is a beautiful hike if you're ever in the Highlands area. Nice. And that is his namesake trail. And so that was a really special moment for Ranger, getting to hike Ranger Falls.
You read my mind. That was my next question. Yeah, pandemic pets are great. I say we being Jeannie Dowling, went off on an errand one Saturday during the pandemic and came back with 3 cats.
Oh, God.
Surprise! We disagree on the facts of that day. I heard I'm going antiquing. I'll see you later. And she heard, or probably said, and I might look at some cats. Kind of slid that in there.
Had you had cats previously?
We had, but they were aging, similar to your story. Two of our favorites, George and Moses, were no longer with us. So in came the new class of recruits, and Peter is still with us. Peter the Destroyer. You can follow Peter on Instagram if you so choose. And yeah, we're crazy cat people. So
what is Peter's handle?
Well, Peter the Destroyer is the exact handle, and Peter had another name. Peter was named Henry, and I had just discovered Peter Millar shoes during the pandemic. We went business casual during the pandemic, kind of like a dress for the day, because how could I ask those 5 people that were willing to come to work to dress up, and everybody else is wearing their pajamas, like we just talked about. So it's like, okay, dress for the day. If you're going to the Capitol, if you're going downtown, if you're going to a lawyer's office, wear a suit, wear whatever.
That makes
but
sense.
if you're just going to keep office hours, you're looking at it, jeans and a button down or whatever. So the shoes were the pivotal moment of the pandemic for me, because I've never really loved shoes ever, never even thought about shoes. And then I put these shoes on and my world has changed. I have a pair on now. They're so comfortable.
I gotta take a look.
Ta-da.
Those are nice.
Oh, they're so great. So Peter's name became Peter.
So Peter the Destroyer.
Yeah, he, as a cat, likes to destroy things, so hence the name.
I think he and Ranger would get along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ranger's calming down. I'm told that after a couple years, the big dogs become a piece of furniture. So I don't know.
We'll see.
In the meantime, we have to trazodone him a little bit on certain occasions.
Well, good luck with that. Well, back to WellConnector. We started talking about WellConnector and the idea that we've all been there. You're sitting in the doctor's office. You've been there, going there for 20 years, and like, why don't you fill out these 10 pieces of paper? Like, really? Nothing's changed. I'm still Blake. Well, what about your birthday? That hadn't changed either. I mean, some of the data they collect, it's nerve-wracking as someone that has had that experience, which is everyone.
Yeah.
So walk us through how WellConnector got started.
Well, I think that experience is super relatable for pretty much everybody. For me, I'd had that experience many times, but about a year and a half ago, I began to start having the symptoms, which I now know are rheumatoid arthritis. But it started out as, some hand pain and elbow pain kind of started happening in other joints. And as I was looking for a diagnosis and going to see new doctors, I was filling out the clipboard of information, spending 15 minutes in multiple offices, barely being able to write and hold a pen. So my handwriting was very messy. It hurt. It was an emotional time, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know what's wrong with me. And just being frustrated that I'm having to, even in the same network of providers, have to answer the same questions over and over again. Most of the things I wasn't even sure were accurate. I've been on tons of medications over the past few years. I've had a couple of different autoimmune conditions. So it's a lot to remember if you don't have like a notebook of information with you and your family history, insurance information. So it was just made me mad. And about a year ago, summertime, I remember having a conversation with a physician friend and just saying, isn't that super annoying to you and your staff? Because then they have to type in this information that's handwritten and messy and maybe inaccurate. And the more I talked to people, they were like, yeah, that's frustrating for us too. So the idea of this app, why is there not an app that solves this problem in this year that we're in? We've got so many other tools at our disposal in our handheld computer, our phone. It just seemed wild to me that did not exist, or at least didn't exist for me. So I had read about Launch Tally and knew Eddie as a friend from the team at Ruvos. And so I started with an initial conversation with him over the phone, just saying, I want to talk about this idea. And instead of saying, no, it's been done, or here's why that can't happen, Eddie invited us, Josh and me, to the table with his team at Ruvos to have a bigger conversation about it. And they were very much supportive of the mission, and it's really grown from there, where Ruvos is now the developer, where for the app, their team of UI, UX designers and developers, they're all brilliant people who care deeply about our community and this mission. And it's just incredible what all has transpired in the past 6 months or so since we publicly just announced that we're working on this, and the feedback from people who are learning about what we're doing. It's just so encouraging, because we hear stories from people who are like, oh my gosh, we need this, or I need this because I'm the caregiver to several people who have complex medical conditions, and this would be such a godsend for us. So I'm really excited.
Well, from my own personal experience, as I said, that's something we need in society. It definitely checks a box, and we've all been in that situation at the doctor's office. And when we wrote about the column and you contributed to it, I was coming off a long string of writing about technology, and I'm like, I haven't seen a really good idea in a long time. I mean, artificial intelligence lately has taken over that conversation, and there's always something new with AI every week. I wrote about AI in elections this past weekend, And if we thought the 2016 election had a lot of noise, well, get ready. It's going to be a fire hose of falsehoods, is the quote I used for that column. I borrowed that from a Russian propagandist in the 1980s because that was their goal. We're going to launch so much mistruth out there that we're going to confuse people and we're going to disrupt democracy. I mean, that's their goal. And I kind of went off into left field there. But WellConnector, great idea.
It's a new space for me, and I'm learning a lot. But it is really, it feels like the universe is kind of nudging me toward this. You know, things happen in your life for a reason, and maybe there's something I need to do with this experience. And being able to work with the right people who also believe in this, it just feels like the right thing to be doing. So.
Well, the name, the image, the logo. Did you design the logo?
I did, yeah. Worked.
It's awesome. I mean, it allows you to it really be a part of the brand instantly. Like, it's really cool. The blue is really, really, really nice.
The concept of connection, and you think of the well of information that we all have, and kind of drawing from that. That shape is also kind of a well, if you think of it that way.
Nice.
So the concept came from me, and then I handed it over to Eric Thomas, who's a local designer, and he and his team were able to polish and refine the mark and give it the TM and the type treatment for WellConnector and help us with the color and brand style guide. So I want to make sure I give them credit as well.
Awesome. So what is the latest with that entity? Where are you all in the process? When we talked in January, February, it was early on. Where are you guys now?
So 6 months from launch, we are close to, refining the MVP, which has taken us through a lot of experiences shadowing clinics, TMH urgent care, digestive disease clinic, Bond Community Health have been among those who have kind of helped us learn from their staff or even shadow them to understand what it's like for the check-in process. The team at Ruvos has been phenomenal in terms of helping with project management and interviews with patients. So, and anyone in the community, if you're interested in speaking with us, we want to make sure we are doing this process through human-centered design, which is really creating a product that works for an actual human and the way they're going to be using the app. And that means parents and caregivers, pet parents, and the clinical staff, the medical doctors. We want to learn from all of these individuals to make sure this is done right, not done quickly for the sake of getting it done, but getting it done right so that it is a useful product. And so that's been really, from a scientific PR person to becoming this, to in the technology spacing, the scientific process there has been really fascinating. But now this fall, Eddie and I are taking our show on the road, so to speak. We're going to be at several upcoming events. I have them. I think you're going to be at the Chamber Community Conference as well, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll see you there. We're also going to be at the TalTech conference coming up in October, Synapse in October, Florida State Healthcare Business Summit is happening in January. So we're gearing up as a team to make sure we have our show and tell ready just to be able to spread the word about our project, and then into 2024 have something that can be a subscription model for people to start using.
Awesome. And you can check them out on Instagram, Twitter, and all your favorite social platforms.
Yeah, we're at WellConnector, easy to remember. And if you're interested in learning more about how to support WellConnector, you can always email me. I'm Allison at wellconnector.com.
Cool. And who manages the Twitter account? You or Eddie?
That is me.
Okay.
I retweet a lot of Ruvos stuff, though, because they're very active.
That's why I was thinking it was Eddie. It's very active page. Love it. Good stuff.
And we're big fans of the Tallahassee Soccer Club. Ruvos is one of the sponsors of this past season. And I know by way of learning about it, WellConnector is also very supportive. So I just want to congratulate Tallahassee Soccer Club and the Battle Lions on a great season.
Go Battle Lions. Speaking of sports, the University of Florida. I arrived on campus in 1992. I say campus. I don't think I saw much of the campus that first year. VHS tapes were still used to watch class. So that's how old I am. You arrived shortly after me in 2001, I believe you said.
Yep.
So tell me about your UF experience outside of studies. We talked about your different majors and how that led to where you are today as a professional. But let's talk about the other side of Gainesville. What was your favorite bar and restaurant in Gainesville?
So I was at Swamp a lot. being a Greek person, that was one of our places, which is, now been torn down and they have a new swamp. I actually got to visit that recently with some girlfriends, and it is not the same, but things change. And
The floor is probably less sticky and it probably smells better.
It's less sticky. It was really loud. I think maybe I'm just getting old where like things are just loud now, but
turn it down, kids. Get off my lawn. Yes.
And I'm like, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Swamp 2.0 is loud. I've driven by a couple times. It's right by my old house at the Alpha Tau Omega mansion. I can't even imagine if I lived there now and that was across the street. That would be fun. So is the Swamp 1.0 the favorite bar?
Yeah, we went to Cluck U a little bit. That's not there anymore either.
Welcome.
Stubby's T-shirt Pub. Was that a thing?
No.
That's where Josh introduced me to good beer.
Okay.
So when we first started dating, Stubby's T-shirt Pub was like the place where you could get like a triple Carmelite or something fancy like a Framboise, and beyond the just standard stuff that I was drinking before, that expanded my horizons. And Josh is a big craft beer guy, so
superior than Natural Light. Oh yeah. We experienced that at the Salty Dog Saloon. One summer we sat down and did the Around the World, where you had to drink a beer from every country.
Yeah.
And you had your little note card, and they kept it in the box behind the bar. It was a presentation. And most of the world I really embraced, with the exception of the PAC area, Asia. Some of the darker Asian beers were really tough. Stouts.
I'm not a stout drinker.
Yeah,
myself.
that was a rough part of the tour, but we made it through. I would have to say the Salty Dog would be one of my favorite establishments, and it's still there. And I took Jeannie there a few years ago. She's like, "This is that bar you and your friends talk about? This place is gross." And I'm like, "Well, gross is relative." I'm like, "This place is awesome."
Did you go to Balls?
It wasn't as gross as Balls, exactly.
I remember them making a beverage for me that I saw them take from somebody else and just pour the drink out and make my drink and give it to me.
Now,
at one point.
I probably shouldn't tell this story on air, but we're going to go out on a limb. So I worked with the proprietor of Balls, Rock and Bill, who were pillars of the community in Gainesville. Or bookies and bar
part
owners.
Part of its charm, that it was just gross.
They were awesome.
You knew
they
what to expect.
And they hired me. I had very little experience. And so they owned Jack's briefly, which was where Po' Boys was, downtown Gainesville. It's the demolished piece of real estate now. And so during my training, after we negotiated my comp plan was I can drink all the beer I want while I work and get tips. I'm like, no salary? I'm like, but the mind of a 21-year-old, I'm like, okay, free beer sounds good. So I would invite everyone from the house or our friends at SAE or KA. They would come up and, tips would flow in. But the interesting part of the training was, okay, we have 4 beers on tap. There was no craft brews available. It was Coors Light, Bud Light. And he's like, follow the coils down and the tubes, which were not clear, by the way. They were black and not on purpose.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's fun. A little mold there. They all went to one keg of Southpaw. So people would walk in and say, I'll have a Coors Light. I'd be like, I'll have a Bud Light. And eventually I had to walk away from my career at Jack's, but I love Rock and Bill. And rest in peace. I heard Rock passed away recently. Balls, Jack's, all their establishments in Gainesville were crazy. I was social chairman for our fraternity, so I was always hiring bands and planning parties and making T-shirts. That's still one of my favorite things.
T-shirt chair's an important job.
Well, see, I did both. I did social party planning and T-shirt planning. So I was juggling, and still our Aegis shirts are amazing, and they look like fraternity shirts sometimes with the little pocket. I've slowly tried to evolve them to be more adult oriented, but I actually met the band Sister Hazel when I was at ATO, and my friendship with Ken Block, the lead singer, and Ryan, the guitar player, who was in another band I was friends with, Black Creek Band. I actually worked for them. That was my second job out of school.
That's
was working
so cool.
for Sister Hazel. So we got to do that, and the foreword of my book, which I shared with you, the lead singer wrote that. So that's really the best part of the book. He tells some funny stories. The rest of it is a lot of rambling by yours truly. But let's pivot to our nation, our state. 2024 will be a huge year for elections, artificial intelligence, Our world's changing every minute, every day. What do you think the biggest challenge is for our state, our nation, as we go into the fall of 2023?
I think remembering what we have in common and trying to have, shared respect for one another. I think it's going to become even just more divisive in the months ahead. And I'll bring up the Florida House, for example. I'm a local trustee for the Florida House in D.C., which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and its mission is to champion, celebrate, and connect Florida to the rest of the world. And I think, during a really divisive time where we're just hearing from so many sources and a lot of people are, angry and differing in their opinions, there's so much that we need to remember that we do share. And so being Floridian, for example, I'm so proud of. And I think, we have such a beautiful state with so much to celebrate that we can look out for and celebrate as a community of Floridians. And that's why I love the Florida House, because it is, I think, something that people can get around regardless of your political party, to just remember that Florida is such a special place that we need to protect and treasure. And its mission as an embassy in D.C., it's the only state with an embassy, thanks to Rhea Childs, former First Lady of Florida. It was her brainchild and idea, and decided to buy that home and make it an embassy for Florida. And now in November, it's actually its 50th anniversary. So that's something we're going to be celebrating locally in Tallahassee. I hope you can be there for the party. But I
would love to. Things
like that in the mission of the Florida House. I hope that just no matter how things go, people can look for things we have in common, because I think that's so important.
What a great message. And I try to incorporate that message into the columns that I write, because the idea of commonality, we're all Americans. We've in the past 20 years, 10 years, whatever time frame you want to call it, we've seemed to have forgotten that we're all Americans when it comes down to it. And I was at a funeral for Steve Ufelder recently. His daughter Allie is one of my best friends, and something he used to always share, and he shared in a WFSU Minute, Moments That Inspire. It's a great segment that WFSU does. And he's like, you know what? Just listen. You can learn from a Republican. You can learn from a Democrat. And the minute you stop using those names, you can learn from a person. We've all got different opinions, and that's okay. And that's good. That's what America was founded on. The arguing and the nonsense out there is so loud. So I think it's our job as leaders to always stifle the noise and get on with the mission of being good Floridians and Americans. And I thank you so much for joining us today. What a fun show.
Thank you. This is fun. I feel like we could talk forever.
Yeah, we could keep going. I had to stop a few of the UF questions. So on that note, we will say, go Gators. Thank you, Allison, for joining us today. Thank you, Josh and Level Up Media, for a great show. And we will see you next time. I'm Blake Dowling with the Biz and Tech Podcast. Look for hats and a new logo. Kabloom! We'll see you. Thanks for watching.